Go better. Can you say something, Cos?
Yeah, do you hear me good now?
Yeah, yeah. So I was just being an Einstein. I literally just had my live stream window open. Well, then you're gonna get an echo. I wish we could do the same trick with money. Like, just do it once and infinite money glitch. Okay, so topic of today: coffee and caffeine. And just for the viewers, we'll discuss a little bit the impact of these things on your body, a little bit performance, a little bit health. Uh, we try to discuss it from a scientific point of view, but it's mostly just a casual conversation. What we know about it by heart. So we'll see what comes up. Maybe it's 5 minutes, and maybe it's 5 hours. We'll see. So, Gus, let's start with a very simple question: do you even drink coffee?
Not that much, to be honest. It's actually funny that you asked this now because I recently started drinking it a little bit more when I'm at work because it's now also this new coffee machine that you probably have seen. So that looks at least quite fancy. So now we can get all these espressos and stuff. So yeah, because of that, I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. And so actually, since recently, I drink it a little bit more, and I think in the Corona times, I had my periods where I sometimes took a cup of coffee, simply because of the fact that it should do something apparently. Even though I cannot necessarily say that I really have that I experience massive effects, but I kind of believe that it well probably does something with me, and I mean it could be a placebo effect or whatever. You never really know unless you properly test it, of course. But yeah, I recently started drinking a little bit, but I'm generally not from like the last few years a massive coffee drinker or something like that. No. How about you?
Yeah, I drink coffee, but I'm also definitely not a massive drinker. So my parents are very disciplined. Like they have their routines and they just do their routines. And their routine is they have a cup of coffee in the morning. And my dad always goes down first, makes a cup of coffee, and then brings it to my mom, which is kind of cute routine. And then after dinner they have one cup of coffee. And just at some point I just wanted to join their ritual, so I asked, can I drink coffee? And I didn't even like it, but I just kind of drank it as a kid with way too much sugar. Just to learn to drink it. But that's how I kind of just learned to drink it. So for me early on it was definitely like a social drink, like the grown-ups drink it, so I guess I do it. Then, as I get older, I became like a nutrition nerd, obviously. So the reason why I drink it now is, like you say, that it's supposed to have effect. So let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Before that, Jorn, that's actually funny because I had the same, kind of the same thing. When I was before I was doing my studies in health sciences and nutrition, etc. I always actually kind of thought just by just thinking that caffeine wasn't necessarily a good thing. I thought it was. I'm not saying that it was something bad, but I thought, okay, probably also I probably read some stuff on Google or something. I can't remember, but I never really had the idea that caffeine was that beneficial or could be that beneficial. So maybe that's also why I never really touched upon it unless I saw that it actually could be beneficial and have some positive effects for cognition and from a exercise performance point of view.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, so in the past, I again never really drank a lot of coffee, to be honest.
so I that would make us a little bit of the exception because about 90% of people in the Western world drink coffee, but obviously we are exceptional. But so yeah, we already hinted a little bit about the effects of coffee, so I'll introduce those with another anecdote. One time when I was still a student in Wageningen, I was learning for an exam, which would be the next morning, and I remember that I said to one of my roommates who was also studying, uh, I just ordered caffeine for a pre-workout supplement in the gym. Why don't we just take a scoop of that and just study all night? So we both took a caffeine capsule, and about an hour after that, I just knocked on my friend's door and I said, "Yeah, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed." And I actually just went to bed. So that was the first time I ever ordered or ever used caffeine as a real supplement. So not like the nutritional variant coffee, or it's in many foods. Uh, but I didn't really notice anything. I was just like, I'm tired, bye, and I just slept like a baby. So my first exposure was like, probably doesn't do anything. Well, whatever. The studies say it does. So I'll quickly cover what I do coffee wise, and I'm a bit of a weirdo. I'll fully admit it. So I drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and that's basically it. For social purposes, I sometimes drink more, but when I'm just
But
on
it's
my
standard, every day, standard.
yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
just part of my morning routine basically. But then how I drink it is a bit weird because I make it in a French press. Are you familiar with those?
No?
So it's basically a glass thing where you just put coffee powder in, and then you put hot water in, and then you press something on it so that the coffee stays down and you just got the fluid. Uh, and the reason I do that, and again, this is not necessarily something I recommend to everyone, but it is to avoid microestrogens. I don't know if you're familiar with those. So basically, the idea is that in our environment, there's a lot of chemicals that can act kind of like estrogen, and one of the main sources is from plastic. And then, especially when plastic gets heated, such as boiling water, just a little bit of the components of plastic leak in the boiling water. So something like that would happen in a coffee machine. Do I think this is a major, major concern everyone needs to be stressed about? Not really, but since I'm drinking that 1 cup of coffee standard in a day, I'm like, why not, right? Like, it's kind of just, it's one of the things like, you're a nutrition nerd, why not bring it into practice? Do I think people are, you know, doing something risky if they drink normal coffee? Absolutely not. If someone says, "Hey, let's get a coffee from this machine," I'm like, sure. But that's just what I do.
But is that like a real thing? Like, has that been shown that it actually happens if that it can come into your cup of coffee that you drink?
Well, I'm not sure
Or
if
is it
it.
more like it could be, and that's why I just want to be safe?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if they necessarily did. Well, I've never seen a study where or looked for it that they did a study on, ooh, this much estrogen leaks into your cup of coffee. But there are plenty of studies that if you use bottles, just these water bottles that everyone uses, if you
Yeah.
just with hot water clean them over and over again, that slowly the plastic is degrading and is leaking in the water. Um, so if you repeatedly heat plastic that you're drinking from, you are going to get some exposure. Now, to be fair, the last time I looked at this was like probably like 10 years ago when I was a student, and how well I read papers back then, who knows? It's just a habit that I developed over time.
Mm.
But again, if you would say tomorrow, hey, let's have a coffee break at work, I'm like, sure. Like, I'm not stressed about it at all. Just, I don't know, I kind of just started doing it at some point, and it doesn't really cost me effort. But I do even more weird stuff because in the morning, I just want to do my morning stuff quickly. And the last thing I want to do is like make coffee and spend time on that. So the evening before, I make coffee in my French press, and then just store it in a bottle, an iron bottle, obviously, not a plastic bottle. And then the next morning, I just drink it cold. Uh, literally just for time efficiency. So basically, all the coffee that I drink is just black cold coffee. So yeah, my routine is not very standard, I would say.
We have these iced coffees, right? Maybe that's not even colder, but people like these ice kind of coffees. That's a little bit what you do then as well.
Yeah, so there's like the two kinds of ice coffee. Um, One is like, especially if you buy some kind of iced coffee in the supermarket, it's more like a milkshake. It has like milk in it,
Mm. Yeah.
usually a lot of sugar. But you do have all kinds of special ways to make iced coffee. I never really understood the purpose because just make your coffee earlier and put it in the fridge and you have it the next day. Uh, but I'm sure there's like if you do it differently, that maybe the taste is slightly different, all that stuff. Also, maybe one more quick story. When I was relatively young, I went to a trip to the USA, including Las Vegas, and I ordered an iced coffee there, and I actually wanted like the milkshake, like iced coffee, because back then I wasn't a nutrition nerd, and I literally I got like a hot black coffee, and then they just threw ice cubes in there, and then they gave it to me, and I was too little, and I had to go, so everything went too fast to really think about it and say like, yeah, this wasn't really what I meant. But I was just walking away with this thing. I'm like, wait, the end result of this will be highly diluted coffee. That's one, because you're just throwing those ice cubes in it. Two, it will be like not hot, but also not cold because it was boiling hot coffee originally. It's like, I was like, is this American? Am I just uncultured? I was so confused. But apparently that's also an iced coffee variant. Just hot boiling coffee and throw some ice cubes in it.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but now you say this about the ice cubes. What I sometimes do, especially if it's warm outside and if I go to the gym, I would take a protein shake, and then I would add some ice cubes in it. And actually, that's pretty nice. If it's chocolate flavors, it's not really the same as coffee. That's actually pretty good. Have like a very cold protein shake with
Yeah, but
some very
that makes sense to me. Like you're cooling something down, but why would you cool a hot, like a boiling hot beverage down? It's either you want it hot or you want it cold, but not like some lukewarm drink. But anyway, let's discuss a little bit more the stuff that caffeine or coffee is supposed to do. So one thing that you often hear is like coffee or caffeine is like the most used drug in the world uh, because technically it's a drug. So, do you see coffee or caffeine as something unhealthy almost because that's like the association that people have with drugs, or do you think, oh, it's actually pretty healthy?
I think, I mean, with a drug, it kind of makes sense. I think it was in 2004 that they took it off from the list of the WADA.
Hmm.
So it was a prohibited substance, especially for athletes to use because it has seemed to have these ergogenic effects, and exactly was considered as a little bit of a drug. Probably still is. So in that regard, I think now, yeah, now it is legal to use. I think they still track it, or they still gonna try to monitor the effects and also see what's going on in the future, as if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, do I see it as a drug? Well, technically, I think yes, it is. But is it unhealthy? I don't think so. Especially because it is legal. A lot of studies have been done. Based on these studies, as far as I remember, yes, there can be some side effects. I don't think they are major side effects. Of course, keeping in mind that you are within like a certain range of the dosage that you take. And I think that's something between 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram body mass. So what would that be? Around 200 milligrams to maybe 500 milligrams or something, depending on body mass and depending on the dosage that you take. So I think if you're in that range, then you could definitely see some ergogenic benefits for athletic performance, which I think will also range from like a variety of different sports. So from endurance, even to strength, even to some kind of intermittent sports. Yeah, I mean, and talking then about can it be unhealthy or side effects? I mean, I think people should be aware of the fact that it could interfere with sleep, and that also goes a bit into the main apparent mechanism that it should have on the central nervous system. That it seems to be an antagonist of the adenosine receptor, so it basically can attach to that receptor and thereby making you more vigilant, more having more focus, more attention, etc. So yes, it interferes with getting with sleepiness, I would say. So if you would ingest it late in the evening, especially if you're definitely not used to it, and maybe in every situation actually, yeah, it could interfere with sleep. And sleep, of course, is also very important for overall health, for cognition, for athletic performance, all these aspects. So yeah, I think it is something that is not necessarily should be considered as unhealthy, but people should know how much to take and when to take. That's my point of view on it now.
Yeah, so you covered a lot. Uh, so it's been a while since I looked at this, but at least back in the day, it seemed that based on observational data, it seemed that a little bit of coffee drinking is actually healthy, but if you drink too much, it becomes quite unhealthy quite quickly. So then they call it a, a U-shaped relationship where
Like kind of with everything, right? What you would
with,
see generally.
with very well, not necessarily with everything. Like with smoking, it's just straight up bad, of
No,
course.
true,
Yeah,
true. But like
yeah,
water drinking,
yeah,
everything basically that could be beneficial or
yeah,
actually is necessary
yeah. But
could also become bad.
with coffee, it's like very small amounts are pretty good. While with most, yeah, no, I kind of agree with you, I guess. But so back then it was like 1 to 2 cups. Well, 1 cup was just better than no drinking. 2 cups, like ideal. 3 cups, kind of like neutral. And 4 cups and higher, slightly increased risk for all cause mortality, which is just uh, a way of saying on average, you would die a little bit younger if you drink 4 cups or more of coffee. Now, of course, that's observational data. It's very difficult to draw like super strong conclusions from that because maybe coffee drinkers smoke more, or maybe like there's a million and one factors you can and they do try to correct for all those factors, but it's just not a perfect human trial because you can never do that. Like if I would say, Cas, do you want to participate in my study? I want to know if coffee is healthy. Uh, you either get randomized to a group that drinks 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 cups of coffee, and you have to do that for the rest of your life because I have to know if you get cancer in the next 40 years. You're like, no, thank you. Like, no one wants that. It's just not practical. So the observational data, it's far from definitive, but based on it, it seems that a little bit is healthy. And then you might wonder, what about coffee or caffeine is healthy? And I once read a study that coffee is actually the number one source of antioxidants in the American diet. So I thought that was a fun fact because yeah, we usually think as caffeine as something super processed, but it's kind of like a plant extract when you think about it. So, and with tea and especially green tea, most people have that association like, oh yeah, it has all these antioxidants, but black coffee actually has a lot of antioxidants, especially since a lot of people drink quite a bit of it. Uh, for many people, it's their number one source. So that's interesting. But then you get the whole discussion, are antioxidants always good? Probably not, and getting too much is probably not good. So that all seems to be nice in
Yeah.
line. So on average, if someone says, should I drink coffee for my health? I would say, well, try to drink 1 or 2 cups. More is probably not a good idea. If you really hate it, it's not like it's going to give you 6 years of extra life or going to prevent a certain disease. But
And I think for a lot of people, it's not. I mean, it's not necessary, right? It's not like an essential component of your diet per se.
yeah,
So if you don't like it, it's not that you should drink
right.
it necessarily. But if you do like it, then yeah, for sure, just go ahead. So maybe one more funny thing, Jorn. I mean, I have spoken to people that are caffeine or they're very sensitive to it. They have these issues, and then actually that reminds me. Do you remember when we were invited for that Berlin Marathon in 2015?
For
When
what?
we went to that sports nutrition conference in 2015 in Berlin,
Yes, yes.
and then we were invited with the power bar stand where we could like give like all these energy things to all the like the gels.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember well, so we were just giving these gels, and they were just grabbing all of them. Like the first the elite athletes they came, they didn't even bat an eye on us. They were just straight focused and went ahead. And then all like the big group of like the more recreational guys came, and they all were like grabbing, and they got like issues because they were almost falling over each other by getting all these gels. And then I remember, I think it was one guy that was like really saying like, yeah, not with caffeine, not with caffeine, not with caffeine. And I was just looking at the packs and I'm like, oh yeah, there is indeed some caffeine in there. Then I look at some other, oh, this is without caffeine. But the guy was already gone. But it was funny that some people are really screaming like, yeah, don't no caffeine, because I think he was probably sensitive to it and he couldn't really handle it very well. But yeah, I was just thinking about it. Some people apparently are sensitive and they don't really seem to respond that well on caffeine.
Yeah, yeah. There's quite a bit of research on it. Like I'm not, I haven't never really looked that in depth into it, but I know that the sensitivity is like huge. Like if we both drink a cup of coffee, um, the effect that I get might be like 5 times as much as what you have. So then you're like, oh, you only drink 1 cup of coffee. Well, yeah, like you just don't know how sensitive you are relative to someone else.
Mm.
And then, but one of the factors that also plays a role there is just very briefly, you have like one gene that metabolizes caffeine, and you can kind of distinguish people in fast and slow metabolizers. And this is far from well established, but there are some indications that on average caffeine just boosts performance in a lot of sports, but that either the fast metabolizers they get quite a big performance enhancing effect, and the slow get a small decrement even, or it's the other way around. But it's not
I
like
think, I
oh,
think I think you're right
oh
in
yeah,
that way. I
yeah.
think so.
But it's not like oh everyone goes 4% faster. It's more like well this group goes I don't know 7% faster, and the other group actually goes -2%. So that's pretty interesting because like I always kind of dislike it when everyone discusses oh personalized nutrition. You really have to tailor it for the individual. It's true, of course, it's true, but people act like everyone is completely different, and
Mm.
you know that what one person needs, the other person needs 7 times as much, or and that's just not true for almost everything. Most people are pretty close together, but caffeine really seems to be one of those substances. As we discussed, sensitivity is very big range, and then also depending on your genes, you might even get a positive or negative response, and that response is not just for the ergogenic effect, so whether or not your athletic performance goes up, but there's also indication that some people, if they take coffee, they can't sleep for the next 12 hours, and the other people are maybe like me and like fall asleep an hour later. Uh, Even when you take your first supplement, and should be very sensitive to it.
Yeah, yeah, no. And what I think what you say is interesting, because also specifically if you look at scientific studies, in this case specifically, it would be relevant to look at the individual data points, because if you now would average it, as you say, some will maybe have a benefit and some may have a detrimental effect by using caffeine, then maybe the average is zero. Whereas actually like half of them maybe have like a positive effect and half of them have a negative effect. So then if you would then just simply put everything and like together and say, okay, there is no effect at all, that would not be then in this case the message that actually should be out there.
Yeah. No, no, I completely agree. Like, for example, we do a lot of research into protein and carbohydrates, and there's just no one who is going to have worse muscle growth because you give them carbohydrates. And unless you give them so much that they get sick, if you just give a reasonable dose of carbohydrates, there's no one who's going to cycle slower because of that. But with caffeine, it's a little bit more complex. So that's really a topic where individualized nutrition matters. Uh, on the same topic, and this is more just research geek stuff, very often studies show like these data from individual subjects. And it's like, oh, this subject went down by this much, and then like for every subject, like one bar. Do you know the type of graphs I mean? And then they suggest like 13% was like a non-responder or even a negative responder. I still kind of dislike it. Like I see what they're trying to do, but you just can't say someone is a non-responder unless you do like at least two trials on them, right? Like,
Probably even more. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if I don't take anything, like one time I'm gonna have a better or worse performance than the other time. So again, in general, I think people try to individualize too much based on almost no data, but sometimes it is actually important.
And it's tricky too. I mean, if someone had like just for whatever reason some private stuff going on, or maybe had a bad night of sleep, and then does the trial, and then performs kind of worse or performs bad, then saying that's a non-responder. I mean, you never know. Maybe because of the barely any that he barely slept anything last night could already be like the influencing factor rather than anything else. Even though that's not something you maybe track in that study. There's so many variables you have to take into account before saying after one single trial someone does or does not respond.
So we kind of discussed that 1 or 2 cups of coffee just for general health seems to be a good idea. Um, we've discussed that caffeine can be beneficial, also detrimental for individuals. Uh, can we specify that more? Should everyone at least try caffeine, or should only certain type of athletes try it, or can most type of athletes benefit from it?
If I would be a coach, then I think I would given all the evidence that's out there, I would try it and see if the athlete tolerates it well, if he or she is performing well with caffeine. Of course, not during an important match or something. I would do it during a regular training session that like all the variables are like similar as for example another training session. We're just gonna see what happens if we add caffeine in like a certain amount and maybe a certain timing and see how he or she responds. I think if I would be the coach, then I would try it out. But if the athlete, for example, at the start would already say, "Well, I drank coffee once and I really hate it, or I don't like it, or my body doesn't respond well," then I would not necessarily see a problem with it. But I would like to give. I think I would like to give it a try just to see what happens.
Yeah. So for all types of sports, you think it can have a benefit?
Yeah, I think there's like the endurance type of sports, as far as I remember well, they seem to show most benefits. But also, I have read some studies, and I think there is some more contrasting evidence there, or some equivocal data. But I think even for other sports, there are some studies showing at least some benefits. So, and that's of course, as we've discussed this before with science, it's very difficult to. You never get like an answer to everything. You also have like small pieces of answers that you can gather to get like the whole picture together at some point, or at least you get far to that. So yeah, I would try it. I would try it out, and also as we discussed now before, there are some individual differences. So maybe someone responds really well to it, and then it could be like a very beneficial aid to use during your exercise routine and during your matches, etc., competitions, all these things.
Yeah. So maybe people are now wondering, like, okay, potentially it can be beneficial for athletes, but how does that work? So you mentioned earlier, I think in relationship with sleep, that you have this substance adenosine that kind of builds up over the day as you get more and more tired, and that just causes you to fall asleep. And then caffeine kind of blocks that substance from doing its job. And just as it prevents that substance from making you sleepy at night, it also kind of blocks the feeling of fatigue during exercise. So that is generally considered the main reason how caffeine improves performance. It just blocks the feeling of fatigue. There are also some other mechanisms that are suggested. Basically, the first thing that they thought was that it helps increase fat oxidation, so basically burning fat as a fuel. And even though that seems to be the case, that it can increase fat oxidation a little bit, that doesn't really explain the performance enhancing effects, because even under conditions where fat oxidation shouldn't matter at all, you still see performance enhancing effects. And to get in even more nerd details, it also seems that it just makes it easier for the muscle to contract, just the way how calcium is released. To be honest, I don't know the exact details by head, but even in very short sports, like very fast contractions, where you would think like it doesn't matter if fatigue gets suppressed because it's so short, fatigue in your head is not going to influence. Even there, caffeine does seem to be beneficial. Maybe regarding that fat oxidation, another thing that you often hear is that caffeine is a great fat burner. Like for people, not for athletes, but just for people who are trying to lose weight or trying to lose fat. What do you think about that? Do you think that's something that could help, or complete nonsense?
Yeah, if it helps, it's very, very minor. Again, if it helps. I think there have been some studies, and this is from years back when I think then I read a review article about this, and I was interested in like looking into to some aids that could help you indeed in either feeling more full, or indeed speed up the process of well, fat loss essentially. Keeping there in mind, of course, that increasing fat oxidation is not necessarily the same as losing fat. But anyways, I think there are some studies that show that it could kind of very minorly increase RMR, so resting metabolic rate or basal metabolic rate. But I think also later some studies did not really see any effect there. So I'm really doubting if it has any positive effect on really losing fat, even though there may be some very small minor benefits there. But obviously, like the main thing is to look at your caloric intake during the day, and also see how much you expend during the day and get that balance right. So if you want to lose fat, make sure that you don't eat more than you actually expend on a daily basis. And then yeah, adding caffeine, I think those effects, especially with regards to that, are like probably even negligible. But yeah, maybe some very minor effects. I don't know if you are aware of any good studies there,
No,
Jorn, but I
not
think
well.
that's what they are at
Definitely
least.
not any good studies, because ideally you just want a study where one group takes caffeine for like 12 weeks and then you just see what happens to their body composition. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't seen any. Um, I have seen quite a bit of studies where, like you say, energy expenditure is increased, and then it's like with 150 calories. Well, that's not gonna make or break your diet, right? So, like you say, you need to pay attention to your real diet and to exercise, and then, I mean, sure, it's relatively easy to get another 115 calories off, so to speak, but it's not going to be responsible for whether or not you're losing weight. Then there's also some suggestion that caffeine can suppress appetite. I've experienced that myself. If I do take caffeine supplements, I do notice that I'm just not hungry at all. So I might even expect more from that than an effect of energy expenditure. But again, I haven't seen any studies that it's actually making a difference in the long term. And I just doubt it would. Like if it makes a difference, it's not going to be a gigantic difference because otherwise, like I know plenty of people who drink 10 cups of coffee a day and they're still not shredded, you know?
Well, I think the problem there also is, Jordan, that a lot of people that don't really go into, like, really read into this stuff. They read somewhere, they hear from someone, oh yeah, if you have, but you need to drink coffee because that will help you while they're losing fat. They don't think more than that. They're just gonna start drinking 10 cups of coffee a day without tracking their calories at all.
Well,
So they think like they get these like, and this happens a lot. And I talk to guys in the gym, and they think these kind of things are true. Oh no, it doesn't matter because you just are you tracking calories? No, it doesn't really matter because I mean drinking coffee or they have these kind of supplements where caffeine is in, and they also have like some other supplements that could apparently cause fat loss. At least that's what they say. But yeah, that's the wrong mindset. I mean, it is really due to the calorie intake and the calorie output, and it's not about these minor effects if they are there in the first place. That's of course also the question.
well, so to be fair, like if a bodybuilder is competing for a contest and they track all their food, etc., and then they say like, could like a caffeine supplement be useful like the last month of my contest prep? I would say sure, go for it. But that's really after, like, it's like a distraction almost until you've perfected everything else. So
Mm.
for like a competitive bodybuilder who's like, here's my my meal plan, here's my timer for my next meal. I'm like, sure. And 150 calories at that level could be quite a big difference. But for 99% of people, it's like a distraction and probably it's not going to do much.
No, man, you're right. But then you have like a bodybuilder that has everything in place already. Like the important stuff is already perfect in a way. So he knows how much he expends. Of course, he never 100% know, but he knows roughly what he expends. He knows exactly what he takes in because he's weighing everything. So all the important stuff is in place, and then indeed you could think about small minor details that could maybe have like a small effect. And of course, then it's important to keep in mind that if it's not really known if it has an effect, that it could be an effect, that it definitely does not have a detrimental effect on stuff. And I think with caffeine, that it would be an example that could maybe have a benefit to some people there. And it doesn't seem to have any negative effects. So then, yes, I would agree. Then you could say just try it out and see how if it works for you.
So, Kels, you mentioned earlier potential detrimental effects on sleep and sleep quality. Like I mentioned earlier, like I fell asleep an hour after my thing. That doesn't mean
You
that
also mentioned that you're a bit strange, Sean. So
that's true, but that doesn't mean that it didn't negatively affect my sleep quality, right? So I'm not saying like, oh, there is no effect of caffeine. Like maybe my sleep quality was 10% lower when I took that supplement. But related to that, you said like, yeah, you can definitely give caffeine a try as like a pre-workout supplement, might enhance performance. Is there like a time of the day you would say like that's the latest I would take caffeine, and after that it's probably not worth the detrimental effects of coffee, or would you say just do what feels right, or maybe you have no clue? I don't know.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think they generally recommend, and this is just a general recommendation. And again, everything could be individually slightly different, but I think it's take it about 60 minutes before exercise.
Yeah, that's for an
Um,
optimal ergogenic effect. But
yeah.
that's to be fair. That
Then you
even
have
that is like more complicated because it depends on how you take it. Like, do you have a
and
caffeine
what
gum?
form as well,
Yeah,
right? If you take
yeah,
it as coffee or pills or
yeah.
any other energy
But
drink.
also like 60 minutes after ingestion, like the peak performance enhancing effects are expected. So if you do like a 3 hour event, maybe you want to take it 2 hours into the event so that you have like peak performance,
Yeah.
like the last 10 minutes where you have to.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Depends on
you're.
this.
Yeah.
Depends a lot of factors on individuals and how you take it. You also have these aerosols, these chewing gums these days. So, but let's assume okay, someone takes a pill or just a cup of coffee. Then I would say, well, about 60 minutes before, approximately. Don't time exactly 60 minutes and then you start the exercise because that's of course that doesn't make any sense. But approximately, and yeah, I would start never start by taking it, let's say, later than 6 p.m. maybe, because I think the half life is, what is it, 3 to 6 hours or something like that. So if you want to try, I would definitely not take it too late, because then it definitely, looking at the science, could interfere with your sleep, whether that's duration, whether that's quality, but it's all important, of course. So I would not take it too late. So if you are exercising at 8 p.m., then I would probably not take caffeine at 7 p.m., because then I think the risk that it would interfere with sleep is actually, yeah, too, it's there.
Yeah.
And I personally, that's personally, I would not want that. But if I know I'm gonna exercise at 6 p.m., yeah, maybe then at 5 p.m. I could consider taking it. But it also, again, then depends how long, what time are you going to bed? Is that at 10 p.m.? Is that at midnight? So it's very, I think, individually dependent. But I think that the bottom line would be that don't take it too late and too close succession to when you go to sleep.
Yeah, I think that kind of like if I translate what you're saying into practice, it's kind of like if you have a training session after dinner, it's probably too late. If you're training in the morning or in the afternoon, then you can probably do it without much issues. So
Yeah,
yeah,
or you still take it before dinner, and then the training session maybe later. You still have some benefits later on, even though you're not tracking that 1 hour. But let's say you take it 3 hours before exercise. There's potentially still some benefits there.
yeah.
So, but I would just generally say don't take it too late. Yeah.
But there's also another factor to take into account is like the risk reward calculation, so to speak. Like, does a 2% better training session always matter? I mean, it's just a training session. And are you risking a few percent worse sleep? Maybe that's more important than going a little bit harder at a training. And not every training session is all out anyway. So that's
Yeah.
something to take into account. And we have an infographic of a study where subjects ingested caffeine either directly 3 hours or 6 hours before going to bed. I don't know how much was from the top of my head, but not it wasn't a crazy amount. Like, it was more than a cup of coffee, but it's not like an absurd amount. Uh, but surprisingly, in that study, taking caffeine directly before bed obviously was worse. Was lowered sleep duration, but taking it 3 and 6 hours before was just as bad. So even 6 hours before seemed to be just as bad as taking it directly before bed. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't really what the researchers expected. So they didn't have another 3 hours earlier. But based on that, my guess would be try to avoid it for at least 6 hours before your expected sleep time. Don't get me wrong; it's not like your sleep will be horrible and that the loss of sleep negates your entire training session. If you have like a periodized training program and you have to do your 1RM, your record of your 1 month training cycle, that's probably more important than your sleep that night. But in general, I would try to avoid it for at least 6 hours before bed. Um, what else do we have to discuss? What do you think of Starbucks, Gus? Ergogenic
Well,
8
what I
or
think about Starbucks is that that generally means I'm somewhere on holiday, so I have actually quite a good association with that. Because generally I'm walking through some kind of city center, wherever, and there's always a Starbucks, of course. I haven't been at Starbucks for a long time, actually. I think I've been there sometimes to get, like, yeah, I was actually generally a more fan of a chocolate milk, dark chocolate, which I just like from a taste perspective, has some good proteins in there, etc.
the
But
cacao stimulates blood flow to the muscles is also very
yeah,
important.
and actually even there is a little bit of caffeine as well in
Yeah,
chocolate, so
yeah.
there's even maybe there's some small benefit, but that's much lower than normal
We can
coffee.
rationalize every food why it's awesome.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing. Everything what we like, we will say why it's good, right? That's the
Exactly.
good thing of knowing a little bit about nutrition. So yeah, what I do think, yeah, Starbucks.
But
I
so
think is
do
fine.
you think that that Starbucks like we've been pretty positive about coffee and caffeine. Does Starbucks fall in that category or
By having good coffees, you mean?
no? Yeah. Do you think that Starbucks is healthy? Would you recommend Starbucks regularly for the average person?
Well, yeah, you for coffee or general, because
Just
they also sell a lot of cookies and
yeah,
a lot
no,
of.
for coffee.
Well, as far as I know, but I never really dived into this. I think it just gives you. I mean, the only thing I know is that some people say like, oh, it's different type of coffee. It tastes differently than other types of maybe more Italian types of coffee. Which is, by the way, something that is also something that I want to talk
I
about
think I
briefly
know where you're going, but go on.
about the coffee machine.
No,
Okay,
no,
well, the thing is actually, sorry to interrupt this question and the answer, but we can choose two types of coffee on the coffee machine that
I
we
know.
have now. We
Well,
have the
two
sweet
brands you mean
premium
or
and,
not?
and a blend star, but I never
Yeah.
really know which one to take because
Yeah.
they give you kind of the same coffee, and
I'm
I'm not
so
such a
annoyed
fan
by
of.
it because it's just like another 4 seconds of my time. I'm like,
Exactly, you have to make a decision, and what is the difference? I don't know. It's the same kind of with Starbucks. I mean, I'm not such a habitual coffee drinker to know like really the differences. I just take coffee for the purpose if I think, okay, this is going to help me today to be a bit more focused or for my work, or if I would say I go to the gym and I feel a little bit tired, just to have that kind of boosting effect. That's when I take it, and then whether that would be from Starbucks or from any other type of coffee store, I'm not too much of an expert to get those differences. Because do you have a specific idea with that, or
well, so there's a few things with Starbucks. Like you can just order Starbucks black coffee, but then people look at you weird. Like, why are you at Starbucks for a normal black coffee? So when people go to Starbucks, on average, people end up with something that's closer to a milkshake than coffee. So, like when we say 1 to 2 cups of coffee might be, relatively healthy, I wouldn't count the Starbucks towards that.
if you would take one of the fancy ones, you mean then?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, we also have an infographic. So this is all on Instagram for everyone who's not following us yet. We have an infographic of a study where they measured the caffeine content of a Starbucks coffee for like 30 days in a row. And then you see it going up and down. And so even in the same shop, the same brand of coffee, it's just all over the place. So it's very, even if you think, oh yeah, so coffee, I have to really personalize it, it's very difficult because the same cup of coffee in your favorite shop might be 2 times as high one day than the other day. And then the final thing I wanted to say, I thought this is what you were gonna bring up about Italy. So I am 1/16th Italian, so I feel very connected to this story because I'm also very classy. So this definitely applies to me. Apparently, Italy is like the one country on earth where Starbucks isn't at all because all the Italians are like, no, we need our own Nespressos. Like they're like, no, all these weird ass milkshakes, that's nonsense. So it's kind of, just a fun fact that culture plays such a big role in whether or not people accept something like a Starbucks.
Absolutely. What I was thinking now, Jorn, I mean, you now raised that example of Starbucks as having like when they measured for 30 days the amount of caffeine in it. Is that Starbucks specific or is it for every kind of company? Because it could be anywhere then, right?
That would be my assumption, but just in the method section, they said we went to a Starbucks in this city and we went there for 30 days in a row. And when I say all these details, it could have been a Dunkin' Donuts and it might have been 28. It's not like I've just looked it up before, but it was like a major shop and they went a certain amount of days in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw a paper. It's also a while ago, but they had like a coffee machine
Wait,
specific
why
for like
why why do you read papers when you have nutrition tactics?
well
Well,
Why not? Plenty of time, right?
Go on.
No, they had like two coffee machines, exactly the same type, but one was way older than you, I think a couple of years older, and one completely new coffee machine as well, but from a different brand and type. And I think then they looked at the caffeine concentration, then it really did not matter that much. So I think the interesting thing there is that, based on that study at least, if your coffee machine is aging, it does not necessarily seem to have a major impact on the amount of caffeine that's in the cup of coffee. So it is interesting that if you look at that at the Starbucks, then assuming they have the same kind of machine, etc., there is something then going on. Maybe I don't know if it's in the beans or if it's in the way who is processing them, who is making the coffee or whatever. But that is changing or fluctuating the amount of caffeine that apparently appears eventually into the coffee somehow.
We should do a study like this and just get like a post workout protein shake in a bunch of gyms and just see if they give us the exact same amount of protein every time.
Exactly.
So I don't have a whole lot of other things about coffee on my mind. Do you have any topics left?
I think there are a lot of interesting supplements that we could discuss, but maybe not for today.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree.
no, I think it's just in summary, it's definitely can help you with your training, with being more focused, having some attention in your work or training sessions. So I think caffeine overall for most individuals can be a beneficial supplement. And you also see it often in like the pre-workouts, where I personally still think that's actually the major or maybe the one supplement that actually gives you the effects. Um, so yeah, I think caffeine can definitely be helpful for a lot of athletes.
Like if you just take regular caffeine, it's also dirty cheap. Uh, but then they
Yeah,
add like 16 other plant extracts so they can say like, look at this special formula. And then the price is 72 times higher than if you just take caffeine. Uh, okay, then just to wrap up, let's see if we have anything else fun to discuss. Have you read any cool papers in the last week or so? Just on anything?
yes. So
Why are you reading papers when you can also read nutrition tactics?
oh, I should have said no, right?
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is actually not really directly related to any of this. So it's more about the effects of heating on muscle
Okay, so
recovery,
can you give a
the
quick
effects of
summary?
massage on muscle recovery, these kind of things.
Can you give a quick summary?
Well, quick summaries. There are different types of heating that you can apply after exercise, and there's a lot of debate now on whether that's beneficial, yes or no. And then you can, of course, think about muscle recovery, but also looking at more the anabolic processes. And now for me, it's really something what I'm interested in is to see, okay, what if we locally heat the muscle to like basically as much as we can. So what I mean, not from the outside, but more from the inside. So make sure that the muscle temperature is really increased. If that could have any positive effect on, for example, the anabolic processes within the muscle. So could it have positively influenced muscle growth? Because yeah, we did a study with the hot water immersion. There we increased muscle temperature with about 2.3 degrees Celsius, if I from the top of my head. So it's quite an increase, but that wasn't enough to have any impact on increasing muscle protein synthesis. So which is one of the important anabolic processes within the muscle. So to me, still the question is if we can increase it higher, does it then have an impact, or is it still if you do exercise? And I mean, with most things, this is the case. If you do exercise, you take your nutrition in. That's basically what you have to do to grow your muscles, and maybe some small effects from other kind of recovery strategy. But most of them, I don't really see any benefits. And of course, if you really want to get big and you don't mind the potential side effects and stuff, then you should add another kind of banned substance into that place, which is also very anabolic. But that's something different, not to discuss, I think, today. Talking about the steroids.
So
If you really have the big bodybuilders and you look at the differences between those and like the normal ones, yeah, there's of course that's also anabolic.
So speaking about bodybuilders, are you still looking for bodybuilders on steroids for your study, or have you
Yeah,
recruited someone?
so for those listening now and watching this, we indeed are doing a study looking at three groups. So a control group, group with natural bodybuilders, and a group with bodybuilders that are using anabolic steroids. Looking into basically entire body composition, doing a lot of measurements such as MRI scanning, DEXA scan, CT scan, ultrasound, etc. And the study is going well, so I have a lot of people that are interested. So that's good. That's good. I do need a few more people in each group before we have everybody booked and planned. And about half of the study is now finished in terms of data collection, at least.
Okay,
So
so
if there's
for
any people that are interested and they would fit the inclusion criteria, because you have to be competitive. If you use steroids, you have to use it for a prolonged period of time. So not that you started like last week, because then of course we don't know the effects. And if you are natural now, you should have been natural for the rest already from when you started weightlifting. Because otherwise there could still be maybe an effect of using steroids in the past. So that's important to realize.
yeah, so we for people who don't know, our research lab is in the Netherlands. So if you're anywhere close to that, I'll drop Cas's email on the description box in YouTube, so you can get in contact if that study sounds cool. And trust me, it is pretty cool because he's using all kinds of measurement equipment that you'll never ever see, let alone be able to use to track your well, not just body composition, but just the volume of each individual muscle. So have a look at that. Let's see. Did you see the paper from Oliver Wittert about leucine by any chance?
Yeah, actually, it's literally right now open on my laptop about the leucine threshold.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw it, Frontiers, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I have it open now. I haven't fully read it yet. I looked at the abstract, but it's something I'm planning to read.
I just did the thing that so when there's a new paper that sounds interesting, the first thing I do is Control F my name, and if I'm then not in there, I'm offended and I'm not reading it. But luckily, I'm in there. You're also in there, by the way. So must
Have
be
you
an
read it?
awesome paper.
Have you read it, or is it just
No,
only the
I just quickly looked at the conclusion, and it was what I was kind of expecting. So then the details didn't necessarily matter that much. But so basically, for those who are not familiar, protein provides the building blocks for muscle growth. I mean, you can take all the steroids that we were just talking about, but that alone won't make you big because you can't build muscle out of thin air. So you need the building blocks, and that comes from protein. But then protein itself consists out of amino acids, and one of the amino acids, leucine, that one seems to be the most potent to trigger all the anabolic processes in muscle. And this paper looked at all the studies that have been done on the topic and just looked if you have a protein source, does the amount of leucine in those protein sources kind of predict how anabolic those proteins are, and it seemed to be the case. Let's leave it at that for now. All right.
maybe Jorn, quickly, have you read any interesting article recently, or was it maybe only nutrition tactics?
Basically, yeah. I just keep reading my old blog post. No, I'm busy with a lot of my reading has been all the how do you call it, the intern theses we're grading now.
Same here. I just actually before this meeting gave feedback to one thesis, so I have to do 3 more today.
Oh yeah, because
on a Sunday, so that's beautiful.
So they have to wrap up soon though, because they kind of need to hand it in by the 15th. So all right, well then I won't keep you here any longer. Let's see. What are we going to discuss next time?
Any other kind of supplement, or we could go for like any non-nutritional strategy that people can apply. Let's have a think about it. Would be, I think, a lot of interesting stuff that we can come up with.
Cool.
And maybe people have suggestions. It's also fun.
All right. Thanks, Cas. And I'll see you at coffee. Maybe we should do just a blind tasting of those 2 brands, and then we can figure it out.
See if there's a difference.
All right. See you, man.
Julio, I have a good day, buddy. Bye.